Perfect. Good afternoon. There are still a few questions here. If you like to sit on the cushions to do meditation, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, we will do meditation in the chairs. Before we get to do some meditations, I want to just share a little bit about the theory behind this compassion training. This training known as cognitively based compassion training. And this is what it is. If you see here, there are 6 modules. The green ones, you can see in this panel. 6 modules. Number 1, attention, stability, and clarity. The second, insight into the nature of mental experiences. These 2 will look like very much what you are familiar with mindfulness meditation, as it is widely practiced today. Practices like cognitive, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, or mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. How many of you are familiar with this meditation, mindfulness meditation? So not a lot, which is very good. So we get to do some meditation. That would be good. Third part is self-compassion. Self-compassion. Actually, it's a little bit of a misnomer. That sometimes people think that self-compassion is. Why do we need to practice self-compassion? We already love ourselves too much. But that may not be quite the case. In many cases, we are very harsh on ourselves. So we will talk and do a little bit of that. So those 3 modules in this meditation primarily has to do with building our resiliency, how resilient we are. And the resiliency has to do with when we are faced with certain challenges in our life, certain difficulties, particularly emotional difficulties. Often we remain stuck in those emotional states. It's very hard to bounce back. And the resiliency, hallmark of resiliency is how quickly we can bounce back from our adversities. And these 3 modules we presented as a way to build resilience. And then the compassion part over here. Compassion, the 3 remaining modules have to do with the compassion. And the compassion here is not about compassion for ourselves, but compassion for others. How can we expand compassion for others? And obviously, impartiality or the inclusiveness is a big part in these trainings. How we can extend our compassion for not only our loved ones, like our own children or the parents, but people at our work, people who are strangers, or maybe people who are a little difficult to deal with some of those so-called adversities. How can we expand? So we begin with this impartiality or the inclusiveness, and then further deepen with gratitude. Because gratitude helps us establish a relationship with others which is characterized by this sense of warmth or warm-heartedness. Then thirdly, the compassion, really for us to have this compassion for others, we have to be aware of their vulnerabilities, their difficulties, their suffering, in other words. The idea here is that with the resiliency and compassion, we can see how we can they contribute to our well-being in life. With compassion, we feel more connected with others. That with resiliency, meaning that we are able to bounce back from our difficulties more quickly. But these 6 modules are actually contained or grounded in what is known as the foundational practice, that is nurturing moment. And it has to do with the establishing a more secure or more sense of safety. Since this meditation is drawn from Lobsang tradition of Buddhism, the mind training tradition, I will make the certain references to the Buddhist practices. So those of you who are Buddhist and familiar with Buddhist practices, you can see the relevance right there. But this practice is secular, not necessarily you need to be Buddhist in order to practice this, but it has its roots in the Buddhist tradition of Lobsang. Resting in a present, resting in a moment of nurturance, it has to do with establishing this initial sense of safety or security. Those of you who are familiar with the practice like refuge practice, in Buddhism we go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, or in more like the Vajrayana, Mahayana Vajrayana tradition, that there the practice also what is known as the Guru Yoga, the establishing a deep sense of relationship with the spiritual teacher. In the refuge, when we go for refuge, we say that I go for refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Often the practice that they do, a practitioner does, is when you entrust yourself to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, you actually, there are visualization practices where you visualize out of kindness and compassion of the Buddhas or the enlightened beings, the field of refuge. There comes the lights and the nectars from their heart, illuminate and then shower onto you. First in white lights of the nectars and light, filling your body completely, clearing away all your illnesses and all the karmic or the emotional the difficulties are cleansed. Then comes the golden lights and the nectars, and then they infuse in you, enhancing all your positive potentials of body, speech, and mind. And then, in such a way, you bring a sense of being under the protection of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. That's in the Buddhist tradition. Now, in the secular context, this is also very applicable, what is known as this nurturing moment. There are practices in the trauma-informed practices today, trauma-informed resilience practices, where basically a practice known as resourcing, tracking, and grounding is done. Resourcing, tracking, and grounding, or tracking, resourcing, and grounding. What that has to do is this. When we are in some kind of trauma, traumatized position, it's very hard to have a sense of what we are feeling. That we lose sense with our own feelings and so forth. So people who are very much traumatized, actually the first part is to connect that with their own bodies, on their feelings and so forth. So there comes the tracking. Tracking has to do with being attuned to your own feelings, own sensations, how you are feeling. And then resourcing has to do, in this trauma-informed the practices, resilience practices, the people are asked to recall, to be aware of some kind of resource, meaning that a person or a place in the past where you have felt that comfort or safe, like in the presence of your own mother or the father, or the brother, or the sister, or the another caregiver, or the good friend, when you were having difficulties. Or sometimes people have very difficult time to place themselves in relation to some caring and kind person. Then you can ask them to see if they remember any such feelings of kind of tenderness or warmth in relation to other animals. Like in the West, people often are very close to their pets, like the dogs and the cats, and like that. They're very close relationship, and they can recall that how at certain time when they were having little difficulties and like that, how their dog was so kind of kind to them, or the cat, sitting with them. Those can be also the moments. Or sometimes people have even difficulties remembering such. Then you can ask them if there is a place where they felt calm. Sometimes people seeing the sunset, or the being at the beach, or the walking in the woods in a park, and like that, when we were having difficulty, they found kind of safety in being in the nature. Those are all important parts. It's called the security priming. That by remembering those, and just for a minute, even if you can remember and sit with that, your brain elicits the similar kind of the chemicals as you had felt when you were cared for, or when you felt such comfort in the nature and so forth. So the brain, whether you are actually held or remembering, imagining, it in a way involves the same brain circuits, activates. So therefore, in essence, you can see that imagining or remembering, they're not just fantasizing, but really putting yourself in that place can actually release the same kind of chemicals in your body that can bring a certain sense of comfort. And this is actually, we can try that together, it's called the security priming. But it also gives us a certain motivation that earlier the Venerable was talking about, motivation for the compassion or the recovery, in the program that you do so beautifully. How do we find motivation for compassion? We have to see the value of compassion. Seeing the value of compassion can give us motivation to cultivate it. And that's where seeing the value is, if we can taste that what it feels to be compassionate, if we can put ourselves in that place where we were nurtured, we were cared for, we were held, or we felt comforted by someone, there we can see how important it is to have that compassion, to receive it and also to give it to others. And that can provide the motivation for compassion. That's why we start with this foundational practice, that's the nurturing moment. That is the number one part, that's called the resting in a moment of nurturance. And this, as I said, is the number one, to kind of prime for compassion. Secondly, is to see the value of compassion, so we can find the intrinsic motivation to cultivate compassion. So you're ready to do this practice? Okay. So why don't we do this? Take a moment. Just, you don't need to close your eyes, nothing. Just take a moment to think of a moment in the past. Was there any moment in your life? If you have pens here, you can actually, if you want to just jot it down, you can do that. Just it's a reflective writing. If you don't have that, it's okay. You can just think about it. Was there any moment where you felt really comforted by someone, or someplace where you felt deeply comforted, whether it was with your parents, with your brothers or sisters or friends, or pets, or in nature? So, ideally, think about in relation to someone. A friend, or it could be someone that you know at your workplace or from your family. If you think of any moment that you can remember. And that's, once you have that, just keep that in mind. And we will come back to that later. But now what I like to ask you to do is, we want to do this tracking part. The tracking has to do with bringing awareness to our own body and the sensations. It's like sometimes they call the body scanning, but it's really attuning to our own sensations in the body, how it feels, whether it feels pleasant, unpleasant. We just want to kind of witness. So please adjust your posture for this brief kind of exercise, the meditation. So just sit comfortably, a position that where you find a comfortable position. But if possible, keep your back in upright position, just fully upright position. And let's just let it settle there in upright position. Your feet, if you are sitting in chairs, if you can find a position where your feet are flat on the floor, so that it gives your body a stable and still position to help us to stay awake, at the same time have the mind be settled. And our other position, like the hands can be just resting on your knees or thighs, or folded and placed in your lap. Your shoulders level, just slightly raise, slightly pull back initially, and let it settle there. Head slightly bent, just chin slightly tucked inside. Eyes cast downwards. If it is not too distracting, you may just have your eyes slightly open, just vacuumly cast downwards. Or if it is too distracting, you may close your eyes. And your lips and teeth in natural position, just gently touching. Just feel this position, the upright position of your body. Your feet touching the floor. Or if you are sitting on the cushions, just that touch with that cushion of your legs. Your lips gently touching. And then bring the attention into your body, beginning with the head or feet, and gradually work towards upwards or downwards, wherever you begin. But simply to attune to what it feels like. Any sensation that you notice, whether it feels tight, loose, warm, cold, whatever the sensations, whether that feel pleasant, neutral, sometimes even unpleasant. Just notice without any need to change, suppress, or hold on, but just to be aware, to witness. And you can gradually move your attention further up and down. Once again, attuning to that part of the body and the sensations. tuning to our own body and sensations this way, if you have come across some place in your body where you may feel where you might feel some tensions that feels tight, like in the shoulders or neck or chest, or just some feelings of distress, it's a feeling of kind of uncomfortable feeling. Let's here take a few deep breaths. With each outgoing breath, to let go, to release, to clear away those distressing feelings and tensions. Take a deep breath through your nostrils. As you breathe in, feel if it helps to feel that you are inhaling these refreshing airs and energies, rejuvenating airs, as they fill your body, particularly where you felt those tensions and tightness, distress. Just feel this airs infused with those. Or in other words, every cell that you get more oxygen as you inhale this refreshing airs. And as you exhale, slowly but completely as you exhale, so exhale with a sense of clearing away, letting go of all those tensions and distressing feelings. Just inhale and exhale for a few more times, 3-4 times. Inhaling those refreshing airs and energies that infuse with every part of us. And exhaling all those tensions and worries, distressing feelings and emotions. Let them go. Letting go of those distressing feelings and emotions. As our body becomes somewhat relaxed and a certain feeling of discomfort, a sense of calmness, relaxation unfolds. Just rest your awareness in that sense of comfort or the relaxation of the body and mind. And now, having been in touch with some sense of discomfort or relaxation, let's now place ourselves in those moments, the moments that you were able to recall earlier, the moment when you felt certain comfort, a certain feeling of being safe and secure in relation with certain people in the past. Just placing ourselves in that moment as clearly, or it can be a 1 or 2, but beginning with a moment where you felt that comfort, placing yourself in that moment as vividly as possible. Where was that? What kind of interaction? Was that interaction that comforted you? What was said? What were the gestures on the face of the other person, or the physical gestures? as we place ourselves in that nurturing moment, kind moment, just bring part of your attention to your own body, to your own chest. Perhaps you would notice a certain feeling of warmth unfolding in your own chest, in your own body. Immersing ourselves in that moment of nurturance, bringing that into our mind as vividly as we can. That this feeling of tenderness, feeling of warmth and comfort, this feeling of safe, being safe and secure. Let it grow to fill your whole body and mind. As we conclude the meditation, just brief. If you had your eyes closed, open your eyes gradually. So this is what we call the nurturing moment. Would anyone like to share what kind of moment that was for you? What was that nurturing moment? Just maybe a couple of examples that we can hear. Was it hard to bring to mind? Because sometimes it can be, in the beginning, it can be a little bit difficult. That's why we often, actually, when we do this, we often begin first just writing it down. The children particularly, but very young children, just asking them to remember a moment when somebody was nice to you, kind to you, the way you felt safe. And then they will write or draw. It's called a resource drawing. Resource, that particular moment of kindness is a resource. And so you begin to draw or write. And in that way, there's some tangible memory that you have. And then that memory is what you can return. That's what. Often people say that, yes, it's difficult to think of. Actually, in fact, in the West, often children find those nurturing moments in nature. They would try to draw the trees or the sunsets and like that. And then other sets would be pets, like the cats, their dogs, like that. People, it's little harder to place. We have done this in the East, in India, in the Tibetan populations also. Very, interesting. There, the children, when we talk about the kind moment, they were all about people, their friends, parents, and like that. It's a little bit of that cultural difference is there. But then in the West also, when then we talk about the one, invariably one of the children will have his or her sister or brother or mother or father like that. Then eventually it becomes very easy for them to remember the kind moments they received from their parents, from their friends and others. We call this, sometimes it's the fireflies impact, effect. That when you go in, when it gets dark in the meadow, often there's one fireflies you see, and then eventually then you see more and more. It's like that, like what they call the random act of kindness. Often it's hard to find receiving those acts of kindness. But then when you begin to see, then there are many. And that's the point of this is, if you think about it, is to motivate and compassion for us. We have to begin to see the kindness that we receive from so many people. And how could we have survived so far? When we were babies, if someone did not comfort us, protected us, given food to drink, when we were unable to sleep, to put to sleep, when we had fever, taking to the doctors, and when we were hungry, feeding us, when we were thirsty, and providing milk, and all those things. At first, it may be difficult to kind of bring to mind, but then we can, one by one, we can see that how could this be possible without those crucial caregivers giving us kindness to us. There, that we can begin to see the value of kindness. Instead of somebody saying that just think about kindness of others, come to that awareness ourselves. So that's number one. Now, what I'd like to come back to is what happens here. What is the kind of the how can we see this resourcing as something that we can use in our everyday life? How can we use this? And this has to do with as I was talking earlier, that in everyday life we do have plenty of stressors. The life is not necessarily always just easy, right? That we lose loved ones, there are illnesses, there are certain failures, and that there are all kinds of the challenges in life that is part of life. But when even like the fear or the worry or the sadness and the irritations and so forth that we experience, so often it is hard to notice that emotions tend to be unconscious ordinarily. We are not aware of our own the emotions when they happen. That only when little spark of emotion, when it has become big forest fire, then we are aware of that. But often when we have already done some damage, said something, then we regret, right? But by nature, emotional experiences are hard to notice when we are in that emotional state. So whether it's the fear or the worry or the anger or the agitation, it's like when things are going wrong. And if we are not careful, those emotions, when we're not aware of that, they keep growing, and then they destroy our health, they destroy our behavior and the well-being. So idea here is that when we notice, the first thing is about that we need to notice when that spark, that little impulse, that if somebody remarks you and then you have the little impulse. Or in today we talk about a lot of the young kids that constantly needing to be on that social media, Facebook, and when that impulse comes, if you are not aware, then you will be reaching out. It would be like that, for alcoholic to hearing, just smelling some alcohol, not even noticing there will be a strong kind of impulse to reach out, and then you reach out and drink, and you'll be drinking. You're not even aware of that, right? So the thing is that first thing for us is to become aware of those impulses, and those, all the emotional states have certain physiological changes. They are associated with a certain bodily changes, and the bodily changes translate into certain subjective experience of that will be feelings, the sensations. So what we need to do is become better at noticing our impulses, those little kind of impulses of the truth, like the sparks that we become aware of. Secondly, if we don't become aware of that, that becomes, we keep building up, bumping us out of that resilient kind of place, so we can become at some point very agitated or very numb, like the depressed. So in order to avoid that, if we can become aware of our impulses sooner, or the emotional state, then second thing is that how quickly we can disengage from that. Just take an example. For example, if a little kid has some kind of pain or something, and he's crying, what do the parents do? Parents try to distract the child, right? They're showing something interesting or making faces or the sounds. And then if the child engages you or that interesting thing, for that moment child forgets about the pain and they stops crying. The moment the child's attention goes back and then starts crying, right? So we want to, the parents' goal is to disengage the child from what is kind of irritating the child and keep the child's attention to this interesting thing, so that eventually child's distress will calm down and will not cry. That's what we need to do. We have children, of course, also when it comes to kind of building this emotional resiliency. We need to do the same thing, and that is what I like to present here is we need to get better at is what Daniel Goleman calls inner focus. The inner focus, meaning that we need to get better at attuning to our own emotional changes, this sensations and feelings that are happening, to better attune to our inner world, inner sensations. That's one thing. When we get better, then we need to also learn how to disengage from, if there are certain emotional things, if there are certain things that are emotional or that distressing, how to disengage from them. When we disengage, we need to know where to go and then how to sustain it there. So, this is, I think we have talked quite a lot about this. So, here, actually, this thing. I wanted to talk in a relationship to our mindfulness of breathing. How do we enhance this capacity to be aware of our changing emotional states? How do we enhance our capacity to disengage when we need to? How do we enhance our capacity to sustain where we want it to be? So let's say, like that children, if I'm feeling a little irritated or a little down, where do I bring myself when I notice? For some kind of nurturing moment, if I can bring myself to some nurturing moment. And if I can keep my attention there, then I will not be feeling that down or that irritated. And if I can stay there long enough, then I will have calmed down enough. So that is what the three, I want to go into these three key skills. Number one, to notice our sensations or the emotions. Number two, when we need to disengage, to be able to disengage. Number 3, to sustain where we want is to sustain. And all these 3 very important skills we can cultivate by learning to sustain our attention, either with some kind of nurturing moment, like whatever nurturing moment, like as I said, in the Buddhist tradition, we visualize this whole refuge field and like that, or that moment that when you were held by your mother or the father and so forth, whatever that nurturing moment, or we can use that nurturing moment, that kind of place to the sustain with our own breath. The breath can be also quite nurturing. Not for everyone, of course. If someone has some kind of asthma and like that, it can be a bit problematic. But for most people, our natural breath, anchoring our attention in a natural breath, is also quite common. So we can learn those 3 skills by training the mindfulness of breathing. And this is what I want us to do next. That the choosing our breath as that nurturing moment. And if we can do with the breath, we can do it with other things also. So we want to notice when our attention gets distracted to some thoughts, some memories, some hopes, fears, and so forth. Noticing, or some other sensations, notice. And then when you notice our attention gets distracted to something else, and gently bringing it back to the breath and sustaining it from one breath to the next, to the next. You want to see this as I mentioned earlier, it's building those basic kind of muscles, if you will, to have our attention more in the present moment, or whatever we choose it to be with that, or some nurturing kind of resource, or our breath, or generally, in everyday life, whatever we are doing, driving down, our attention is more present, reading, present, cooking, eating, whatever, to be more present. We can learn that by sustaining in the present with the breath. We want to get better at noticing where our thoughts are, how our mind goes, or our sensations, what sensations are happening. That whenever our attention goes to somewhere, noticing it, that's awareness when our attention is with unrelated things. And then we want to just acknowledge and gently bring it back to the breath and sustain it. You see that 3 skills that I'm talking about? The value of that is not just to sit with kind of the breath or some nurturing moment. The real value is in everyday life. That because number 1, our minds are usually wandering. Research shows that about 50% of the time when we are engaged in any activities, particularly if the activity is not very interesting, our mind is somewhere else. So we may be doing work at the desk or whatever, or reading, but our mind is somewhere else. When our mind wanders to somewhere else, it's what distracts us are twofold. Number 1, sensory distraction, like sounds, smells, visual things and like that. But those are not major kind of issues. The bigger problem is emotional distraction. Often, when our mind goes somewhere, when we are doing something, but then we are lost somewhere, it's emotional. It's about things that have not gone right, things that went sour, or the relationships of the world, or worrying about something that might happen or not happen. And this, what the psychologists call the default mode. That mind is in the default mode. Default mode, when your mind is in the default mode, it's about me. That it's about we are self-absorbed. The things that we are struggling with, and to be in that kind of state, whether we are ruminating with some kind of difficult exchange with our friends, or or relationships and like that, or some other issues, and it's, of course, it's not pleasant. It's very stressful. So, by developing this ability to notice where our mind goes and be able to disengage and bring it to whatever we are doing, we can improve the quality of our life and be more efficient. A student can have his or her attention with the school work, when it needs to be clear, when instead of lost in the social media, like that. You can see that for adults, for all of us, it can happen the same thing. But we can develop these skills to sustain our attention where it needs to be. And sustaining it is something that is nurturing, is of course helpful. But even with the breath, or sustaining it with the work, we will get the work done better. With the study, we will get it done better. But these are the skills that we can develop by simple practice of mindfulness of breathing. So let's do this practice briefly. If you, like before, if you can simply adjust your posture to bring in the back right position, feet flat on the floor, or any other comfortable position that you can place your body. And then just for a moment, just bring your attention to your own body, just for literally for a minute. Just do this brief kind of tracking of your sensations from the head down or the feet upwards. Whatever sensations you notice, just witness without any sense of need to push them away or hold on to them, but just witness, observe whatever they feel. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, tight, cool, long. And then, to anchor our attention here in the present, let's find our breath. Take a moment to see where you feel your breath most clearly. Is it at the abdomen, with the rising and flattening of your belly with in-breath and out-breath? Or do you feel your breath more clearly at the nostril, that subtle kind of tactile feeling of in-breath and out-breath? Or do you feel it more easily at your chest, as the lungs expand and contract with the incoming and outgoing breath? And once you have connected with your breath, where you feel it most clearly, then just for next few moments, just direct your attention at that spot, simply to rest with each incoming and outgoing breath, aware of that unfolding sensation of in-breath and of the outgoing breath. Just one breath at a time for 5, 7, 10 of those incoming and outgoing breaths. You may count just silently with each in-breath. With first in-breath, 1, aware of the in-breath and outgoing breath. And as you breathe in again, 2. And in this way, just one breath at a time, to see if we can be fully present and aware of our breath for 5, 7, or 10, 11 cycles of incoming and outgoing breath. While sustaining the attention here in the present with our breath, just apply it from time to time, just checking in on the monitoring of our own attention. If we are still with the breath, or our attention has wandered off to some thoughts or memories, sounds, hopes and worries and like that. If we notice that our attention has wandered off to those thoughts, feelings, sounds and so forth, whenever we notice such distractions, just acknowledge that that's where our attention went. And then just gently bring the attention back to the breath, back to the present. Once reconnected with the breath, then once again, just one breath at a time. See if we can be fully aware of each incoming and outgoing breath. While sustaining our attention here in the present. And as we apply this introspective monitoring, just to check in, sometimes instead of distraction, we may notice that our mind was kind of sinking, so becoming foggy and fuzzy, sleepy. If we notice such, just apply a slight kind of intensity of attention, so intensifying, increasing the focus on the breath. If needed, adjusting the body posture, bringing the body, the back in fully upright position. And if further needed, just take one deep breath, bringing the breath all the way to the belly, and with the exhalation, letting the sleepiness clear away. And then just gently placing the attention with the breath. And as you breathe in and out naturally, just be aware of each incoming and outgoing breath. And when you are ready, if you are happy with your eyes closed, please gently open them. So this part of the exercise is still building on that resiliency. Has to do with, when we notice we are getting a little tense, irritated, or any kind of emotional distress, feeling distress, to be able to notice quickly and then bring it back to the breath or any task. It's about how to disengage from the distressing moment more quickly and to sustain it somewhere else. And in terms of the benefit of kind of in everyday life, we can see that how if we do that, it will prevent from kind of our stresses from building up. We can disengage from whatever is causing us stress more easily. Now, the disengage, dealing with emotions is it's not as easy as just simply noticing what is distressing and disengaging. This would be great if we can do this, but it's not. not kind of sustainable in the long run. So what we need to understand is that what other kind of skills we need to build. So one way to understand this would be from this 5th century Buddhist master Vasubandhu in the Dharma Kosha, a text. It's like a Buddhist encyclopedia. There, Vasubandhu presents this theory about how our emotions, the afflictive emotions, what are the conditions that kind of give rise to afflictive emotions. And there are 3 conditions are presented. Number 1, when one has not cleared away the dispositions of afflictive emotions, that's one. That is to say that, to borrow this metaphor of addiction, if I have the kind of conditioning for alcoholism, the addiction, let's say, or another, so let's use the addiction part. And so dispositions are there for getting addicted. But simply, if having disposition for addiction is not going to make me addicted, alcoholic. So number 2, the triggers for these emotions are in proximity. So again, if I use the alcoholism, alcohol is around, where I can smell, I can reach out to this. It's nearby. Number 2. So I have dispositions for drinking, and the alcohol is readily available right there. Having these 2 is not enough still for me to just reach out and drink. There's third one, which is most important, and that is if one engages these triggers with false projections, then the causes of afflictive emotions are complete. That is to say that if those potential triggers like the alcohol, and I have the disposition for alcoholism, and the alcohol is there, and when I smell it, I see it. My way of engaging with this is that this is wonderful. That's what I need, that project the kind of what happiness it will bring, and then nothing can prevent. If these conditions are there, then I will reach out. So, what in the real life situation, like Paul Ekman, this is an expert on emotions. He talks about how events do not trigger emotions. Events themselves do not trigger emotions. It's the appraisal, it's our interpretation, how we see it, what our interpretation of that event. That's what triggers emotions. And earlier our speakers were talking about how the external conditions themselves are not necessarily like illness and so forth. They are somewhat inevitable, but we can project, this is really bad, that must be really bad, and all those things, and then it will make that situation much worse, right? So same thing like the worry or fear or anger, all these things, the projection makes the things worse, how we see it. So, but we are very good at projecting. That often we see the world in black and white. That's how part of our evolutionary kind of the build up is such that we are particularly we are biased towards negative. That is something harmful, negative. That we are much easier to kind of project that negativity. If there's a person that instead of that person's 10 smiles, if that person one time did a really kind of the bad face, that sticks, brain. I mean, it has certain evolutionary purposes, but it's really bad for today. In today's time, in today's world, for us to kind of engage with people and situations, all this is with this exaggerating, projecting negativity onto this is what makes those events and people trigger those negative emotions. So that's why what we need eventually is to, first thing we need to learn, therefore, is that when we are in the presence of such kind of the emotions. Now here we're not only the if I remember a person or the event or see or hear my perceptions and thoughts and memories and anticipations, one of the things that we can learn is to hold back those projections or the judging. So that's what the second module, when they talk about the mindfulness, non-judgmental awareness, it's about being, if I feel sad, it's not that I need to move away from sadness. Of course, in the very beginning, yes, it would be great if I can notice, and then I can bring myself to some thoughts that are pleasant. That's helpful. But how often we can keep doing that, right? If I have lost my child, that sadness, it's going to be there for quite a while, for maybe sometimes whole life. We have to change our relationship to those thoughts and feelings instead of just diverting our attention to somewhere else. In the beginning, it may be helpful, but it would be more helpful if those feelings of kind of sadness and the worries and so forth, that are the memories of people and events, if we can change our relationship to those thoughts and feelings from kind of black and white, this is good and bad, to begin to acknowledge and notice what they are as thoughts and feelings. That is the second module, like the present moment awareness or the non-judgmental awareness. That part is another step. In that context, often in the meditation manuals, like in the text on the nature of the mind, it tells you to use some metaphors. For example, see your mind like the stillness of the deep ocean. Your thoughts and worries and fears and the emotions that you become aware of as the waves of the ocean or the ripples of the lake. That waves come and go. They don't remain fixed. They subside into the stillness. Or other times, the metaphors used are like to see your mind, the field of mind like the sky, and the various thoughts and worries, memories that you notice like the clouds. They come and go. Clouds may be there. They don't really pollute or corrupt the space itself. It's there. They are temporarily there. If you don't identify with them, if you just see what they are, then they will subside more easily. So that's the another brief kind of meditation. How many of you have done this form of meditation called the present moment awareness? There's quite a few. So maybe we will skip that. Okay? If you have, or maybe. Well, since quite a lot of you have not done it, so maybe we will do it. Why not? Let's do that, right? Okay. So, shall we do it? Yes. Okay. So, remember what I said was that here it's not that when you notice a worry or the little sensation of the kind of tightness or the pain or the little worry or the little sadness or the little irritation, you're not going to notice and then bring it back to the breath or some nurturing moment. You actually are going to just witness. You change your relationship to that thought. It's not good, it's not bad. It is what it is. Just relate to that like the waves of your own mind. Whereas your overall state of mind is kind of bring a sense of like a deep stillness. And just simply noticing that certain worry, certain thought, any kind of thought and perceptions, it's there. You don't need to move away, run away. You don't need to keep. You just notice. Sometimes it will change into the stillness. Sometimes it will linger for a while. But just once again, if you can place your body in the meditation posture with the back upright, the body placed in the stillness to help with the stillness of the mind. And then just 2-3 breaths, just anchor our attention here in the present with incoming and outgoing breath. Just rest our awareness in the present with our breath, incoming and outgoing breath. And then just gradually expand this kind of, if so to speak, if your attention was like the lens that was focused on the breath at the nostril or the abdomen, just gradually open that lens more openly without selecting the breath, but just openly to all our present moment experiences, whether they unfold in the form of our thoughts or memories, certain feelings, certain anticipation, hopes or worries, without choosing certain thoughts and feelings, without blocking others, with its complete openness. Just simply bringing attention inwards to our own inner universe, inner world of thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, and so forth. And whatever rises to your awareness, whatever you notice, whatever thought, feeling, without judging it as good or bad, without trying to push away or hold on to it, just simply observe, witness. Let your overall field of mind, if you will, be like the stillness of the deep ocean. While there may be deep stillness, if the conditions are present, like winds and so forth, there will be waves that will surface in that ocean, manifest on the surface. Similarly, if the conditions are present, various thoughts, feelings, memories will unfold. So when we notice any particular worry, particular thought, discomfort, joy, any sensation, any thought, emotions, just relate to them like those waves of our own mind. Conditions are there, they unfold. Maintaining that non-judgmental observing. As we simply notice or witness a particular thought or feeling, memory, it may gradually change or not. If it doesn't, just simply notice it is what it is. But at times it may gradually change and subside into the stillness of our own mind. When that happens, just rest your awareness in that sense of stillness, calmness. In other words, in that gap between a particular thought or feeling that you notice has subsided, and the next one will become aware. Yet, when the next thought, feeling, memory, and perceptions that you become aware, once again, without judging, just simply acknowledge, simply notice, and witness, without rejecting, without pursuing. That too may gradually change and subside into your stillness. So that's must be with the second module. With self-compassion. Self-compassion is another part, that where in modern times particularly, I think it's very difficult to face our failures and shortcomings, because in many ways, we kind of tell ourselves that if we are good enough, we need to succeed, we need to be good, we need to be better. We compare. Our nature is to compare and to compete, like that. And when we kind of internalize this belief that if I'm good enough, I should be able to do everything. Well, in reality, that's not the case. So that's why when we fall short on the things that we do, or when the adverse things happen in our life, so often we end up kind of seeing ourselves, I'm not good enough, and seeing myself as a failure. And that's where that it contributes to the sense of guilt, sense of blame, and it's a major problem in the industrial countries, particularly more capitalist countries, with the idea, that this pressure on, and also our advertisement and everything, that you see that all the people that looking so nice and young and so successful, and we idealize, right? We idealize it, and we idealize ourselves. We want to be the perfect, but the reality shows us over and over again that we are not what we want to be. So the expectations, these unrealistic expectations, are a major source of our frustrations. In fact, the Shantideva that I was mentioning, Shantideva, the master of mind training, in the Shiksha Samujaya, the very important text in the training the mind, he talks that how, with regard to with our adversities, our shortcomings, and the imperfections, he talks about when we are confronted with these kind of certain shortcomings in our life. Since we if our expectations are unrealistic, that when we fall short of those expectations, it causes certain frustration, irritation in us, and that irritation either leads to depression or hostility. And think about this. I feel that I need to have a certain kind of success in my life, whether it's the position or this many papers produced, kind of published, or whatever kind of that you have, or even a mother, that what kind of perfect mother, to be in any kind of domain of our life. If my expectations are unrealistic, and then when I do not meet that expectation, that is going to make me feel irritated, frustrated, and at times I may feel that I'm not good enough and then become depressed. Or I will feel angry at myself, blame at myself. So those are the two, whether it's one with oneself or with others, that happens. This is true, actually, if I may invoke this Paul Ekman again, this person whose life actually changed after attending a conference with the Dalai Lama in 2000. Paul Ekman is an atheist. I mean, he is a kind of hardcore scientist. He did not see any benefit in engaging with the Dalai Lama to discuss about this. meditations and this. But he went anyway because he had to. His daughter, if now she runs the program for emotional balance. She was very fond of the Dalai Lama and Tibetan people. So he had an opportunity to take one of his family members to this conference. So he went there for his daughter. And during the conference, one of the tea breaks, he had the opportunity to introduce his family member. So he introduced his daughter. And she had a question to the Dalai Lama. And that was that why are we often the most angry with the very people we love? Or we are closest to? Why are we? And the Southerners gave the answer that because we idealized it. You know, we have unrealistic expectations about them. So when they fail to deliver that, we become frustrated, we become angry. We should accept them with their imperfections and limitations, and we will not be so angry. So whether it's with our parents, or spouses, or the, other people, or with ourselves, it's the same principle. Allah goes the same. So that's why in the self-compassion practice, idea is to recognize that I am not alone. When you fell short, to notice that I am not alone. Okay, and this has this also actually is very beautifully kind of demonstrated in a story of Kisa Gautama. At the time of the Buddha, there was a young mother, very young mother. She lost her baby, her first baby, and she was devastated. You can imagine, of course, sadness of losing a loved one. That's true, but that's not the only thing. She also was struggling that I have not been a good mother. Otherwise, I would not. You blame on yourself when the things that happen. So she was blaming on herself. If only I were a better mother, I would not have lost my child. What would the society be telling? That she's a bad mother, her own image. So she was mostly feeling that I have failed. I'm not a good mother. Because her baby did not survive. So in that grief, she goes from people to people asking if anyone can bring her baby back to life. And nobody could do that. Eventually someone directs kind of her to the Buddha. Said that if there is anyone who can help you, it would be the Buddha. So she goes to the Buddha with her body of her dead baby and all kind of distraught with emotions, and asks Buddha if please revive my baby. And Buddha doesn't say that that cannot happen. In his skillful means, he says that that's fine, but first go get me a handful of mustard seeds. And then she feels that, well, that's great, I can do that. But then Buddha says that make sure that these seeds come from a household where nobody has died. Of course, that doesn't make sense, but when you are emotionally, kind of in an emotional state, your vision narrows down. You don't see the reality from the broader sense. So she was asking for mustard seeds from place to place. Everyone is ready to give a handful of seeds, but when she asked the second question, has anyone died? One after another, they said the answer is the same. Yes, somebody has died. And they're like parents, grandparents, children, like babies. Eventually it dawned on her. She is not alone, that who has lost the baby. Right? And that was such a relief. Awakening to the reality that that happens, and to anyone, and then she's not alone. This is what I think that that so often when we fail in that emotional state, we just simply see ourselves as a failure. One mistake becomes, I am a mistake. Instead of saying that this is one mistake, there are other good signs also. So that's why the self-compassion practice, it's we're running out of time here, so I don't have a lot to say about this, but I will say that self, this is where the cognitive part comes, and then the other speakers today spoke wonderfully about those 3 levels of the wisdom or the understanding. Remember, this is the theory of change here has to do with this called in Tibetan Tajul Gongsun, that which has to do with the perspective, the conduct or the behavior, and familiarization. Sometimes it's called the view, conduct, and meditation. So, in other words, having this the view that I'm not one mistake, or the seeing our reality from the broader perspective is what is the view that we need to incorporate. And as humans, we have human limitations. And I'm not the only one who makes mistakes or falls short. Others, it happens to others also. That common humanity, referred to as, which is an important part. But that view needs to be something that not just simply learned in the books or told by someone. It has to be a personal insight. And that requires analysis, reflection, thinking through that, seeing from many angles that how I'm not the only one who fails from time to time. It happens. It was seeing from until it becomes that aha moment where you can see that yes, I'm not alone. That is, and then further, for that kind of awareness to become embodied, to become something of second nature, we need to reflect, visit that reality again and again, until it becomes our second nature. That's where it's the embodied understanding. If that is, if our such perspective becomes embodied, then when we are confronted with loss and the shortcomings and failures and like that, our spontaneous response would be that yes, I'm not alone. Instead of here you go, you're stupid again, you're a loser, like that. So this is a major part of the of this framework. We have this major. These things we fortunately this sounds familiar. Yes. This comes again from Shantideva. The training our mind. This has to do with the mindfulness, cultivating the mindfulness. But these were the meditation, the sky, and so forth. But here, compassion part. I want to talk about a little bit of compassion, and we want to do this meditation. Of course, we all have compassion within our life. It's in our DNA, it's in our genes to have compassion for someone close to us. It's that this is something that mammalian trait, if you will, to have compassion. It's biologically given. But the problem is that our compassion is limited to our in-group, someone who is very close to us, that we identify with. And it does not extend to people who look different from us, who have different interests, different backgrounds. If we were to expand our compassion from someone who is close to us, like our own family members, to strangers and those even who are difficult to deal with, how can we do that? We can learn from nature also, that what nature has endowed in us. That's one thing, is that identification promotes empathy. That when someone becomes one of us, that person's interest or the situation remains no more like just this person, but it becomes yours. When somebody is one of us. So the one way to kind of expand our compassion is to see how someone who is my family member close to me, someone who is stranger, someone who is sometimes difficult, is also just like me. They have human limitations, imperfections, they have their dispositions. They also want to be happy, they want to be free from suffering, just like me. That way, that if we can really kind of relate to the three people, friend, stranger, and adversary. By recognizing, going beyond the superficial, temporary differences to see our commonality at a deeper level, sort of seeing the humanity. They are also like me, want to be happy, free from suffering. Then there is that connection, there is that identification. Someone is just like me. And that kind of perspective, if that perspective becomes deeply embedded in us, it would, that sense of connection that becomes with others, it will naturally lead us to their lives, what's happening to them. Actually, it's this tendency is so powerful. Even when we identify with someone, quite superficial levels, like that if we belong to the same club of, let's say, soccer club. And this is a study done in England, in Liverpool at the university, where the researchers created this study where they observed the students when they passed from one building to the next between the classes, and that they, had this actor, that's placed on the path, within the side of the path, pretending that he was very sick. And then the first time they did, the researchers observed how many students stopped to, pay attention to this person, if he needed any help. Only 17% of students bothered to stop to ask if he needed help. Another time, they did the same situation, except that this time this person who was pretending to be ill was wearing the jersey, of their soccer club. And on this campus, the students, they are very, very kind of the big fan of their soccer team. And this time, how many students stopped? You can guess how many students? Huh? 90, but you're very optimistic. Yeah, you're not actually close. 85%. Because what is the difference? Is that the jersey? It is the jersey in one way, but it's really the identification. Now this person was not just someone, was one of us. You see, that is what it's. The nature has endowed us with that. Because we have this in-group bias. When we need to expand our in-group, in-group meaning that those who are in my close circle, our family members and so forth, all in a certain tribe. But today, the whole world is a tribe. We live in such a kind of in such diverse communities. We need to expand this in-group, bring others into our in-group by recognizing that they too are like us. They have imperfections, they have limitations. They can make mistakes like I do, but they too want to be safe, they too want to be happy, they too want to be free from suffering. If we can connect them, then we bring more people in group. But it's a tall order, that's why one needs to do practice. Many practices are needed. And one of the things that I was mentioning earlier, that loneliness is such an issue today, right? Loneliness. And the impact of loneliness on our health is enormous, actually. Researchers measure that on your health, like particularly with the mortality, the death, it's equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's as kind of serious as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. all, impact of loneliness on your mortality is actually greater than obesity. Obesity leads to many illnesses, and for kind of secret of obesity, there's so much money is put to educate people about the hazardous impact of that. Loneliness, we don't talk much, but it's correlated with anxiety, the depression, and the cardiovascular illnesses and the longevity itself. So, Vivek Murthy, Dr. Vivek Murthy, actually, he's the Surgeon General, when he sees that it's the epidemic in the public health today, the loneliness. When you see, like 40% of American population under report of being lonely, and actually among this, what the Generation Z, like those 18 to 21 years old, the college students, it's all-time high. That 48% of the college-going students experience extreme loneliness. So it's a huge part. How do we combat that? One of the things that he has done is this called the Inside School. It's basically a simple practice at the workplace, just spending 5 minutes where as staff comes in, that someone talks about his or her life, what's happening, not about what the job, but personal issues, whatever issues they are going. By sharing that, other people, identify that they are not alone. There is a sense of kind of the connection. So that's also is very kind of the current way of looking at, but the older, more Indonesian traditions are like the practices of seeing how we, like me, all others, they want to be happy and free from suffering. Now another part, this is a kind of activity that we do. We don't have time, unfortunately, today here to do. But in essence, take this sweater. We ask students to do this interdependence drawing. Something that is made by human and that's important for us, like this sweater or the cell phone or whatever. And then in group of 4 or 5, they put this drawing in the center, and then they start what is needed for you to have that center, where does that come? And then soon they realize that actually many people are needed to have this sweater. Like that. Same thing, the food. Every day, how many things that we need to survive? Each and everything comes from others. That realization, that awareness, that when we recognize that how others are instrumental in my well-being, my survival and well-being, it promotes gratitude. It promotes the sense of tenderness. There again, nature has also endowed us to respond with a sense of tender, warm feeling towards someone who helped us. Even if someone gives you a genuine smile, we can't help but smile back, right? It creates a... So, in reality, we are just dependent, the way we receive from our neighbors, parents, and so many people, but this is somewhat invisible, not clear. So we need to reflect upon, making that invisible visible to us, that how everything I have is made possible, particularly beginning with our parents and the family members and those who are at our workplace and like that. If we can see that, then there will be a sense of tenderness, gratitude, and sense of warmth. And that sense of warmth is what is critical for compassion. Because when we can connect with someone with a tenderness, like those college students seeing someone who, one of them, can reach out to them. And it's also actually that there is a, perhaps that's what also makes us kind of other-oriented instead of seeing someone's illness, instead of feeling emotional distress or that empathic distress. kind of brings the focus more towards others, thereby preventing us from kind of empathy distress or empathy fatigue and like that. So these are interdependence. One is an important exercise. From the Buddhist point of view, of course, we can think about interdependence at many different levels, but here we're talking about interdependence at the level of our own comforts and well-being. But that part also can be very, very powerful. Franz de Waal, that this primatologist at Emory, he talks about how gratitude is characterized by this sense of warmth towards the giver, and this nature must have endowed us with, in order to favor us going back and forth. That when I receive something from someone, it becomes much easier for me to give, and that they will give me back, like that. And they have done a study, observing the bonobos is one of the apes families. In the study, where they give food to this colony of the apes, whoever receives the food, whoever gets, they have the authority to who to share or not. Even the alpha male has to back. They can just snatch. In the bonobos, that's apparently how they do. And he talks about observing over 7,000 of those food sharings, 7,000 over many years. One predictor that shows the strongest is who they shared the food with, is whether they were groomed earlier or not. So, that if the bonobo was groomed earlier, and when they get the food, they will share with that much quickly and willingly. And we know from our own experience also that we are aware that someone was kind and helpful. It's easier for us to feel connection. So when it comes to compassion, we're not talking about compassion to become kind of a saint. That's not. Compassion at the emotional level is, can we develop a way to connect with others with a deeper sense of connection? And that changes the whole of our kind of emotional life, the quality of life itself. Thank you so much. Sure, of course.
So we'll share that with you. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I do have some brochures if you like, that I will have brochures on CBCT. But also, we do have a website at Emory, compassion.emory.edu, and